Okay, what I would like to talk about today for 12 minutes and 50 seconds maybe is something we all are very dependent on and which is all our lives are really affected by, but we never see it and we never think about it, or most of us don't do. And that is the global shipping industry and the associated shipbuilding industry in this. And we are now seeing that these industries are going to change fundamentally. And where is this change coming from? Where is it influenced by? It is by this typical cliche type of development that we see, which many call nowadays the fourth industrial revolution. I'm sure you have come across this, and it's a nice little box you can fill in whatever you want. Everything that we don't clearly understand is a part of Industry 4.0. What is this 4.0, this industrial revolution number 4? It's in a way very similar to the previous ones in that it will create enormous change. And this change means structural change. Change that will put some people out of the regular things they are doing, will replace some jobs, will create new ones. At the same time, it will create a huge jump in productivity and huge jump in wealth. And it is up to our politicians and leaders in the world to figure out how to distribute this. But what I would like to talk about is how this technical revolution, which means the combination of things like Internet of Things, digitalization, artificial intelligence, automation systems, and these technologies merge together and provide a huge new platform of possibilities that now companies around the world are trying to think in how they can utilize this. And this is the context for a case I would like to tell you about today. And this case is about the autonomous ships. So it's ships which basically leave from Singapore, port of Singapore, and find their way themselves to Hamburg, let's say. And they do it all by themselves. And it sounds kind of spooky, but this is what is currently being developed. So what is needed to do this? It's a huge effort, of course, and not a single company has all the resources and capabilities to realize this, but it's a huge cross-industry effort that requires a lot of collaboration. And a big change for an industry which looks like this, basically. So this is a conventional value chain in shipbuilding and shipping, which is very linear, and basically all the actors along this value chain are very much concerned about their immediate kind of partners, their suppliers and their buyers. And they try to balance their own business between the forces of these along this value chain. And the dominant logic in this kind of a world, in the linear value chain world, is big is beautiful, right? So if you're a shipyard, for instance, you want to build huge ships, and these ships, are basically based on the logics of capital investment, and the bigger the ship, the more it has potential to create different economies of large size, like economies of scale. The same thing is true for the shipping industry. For instance, ship operators which transport our containers around the world. For them, the more containers they fit on a ship, it means it's sliding the average cost per transported container. So size, again, is a logic that cannot be ignored in this system. I still have 11 minutes 18, so that the timer has just stopped, I think. That's good. Very good. So this is the world we see today in shipping and shipbuilding, and we can see from different innovation projects that this is substantially changing. And how is it changing? If we take a glimpse into the future, we see things like this in the first stage. Big centers which in the first phase would control large ships remotely, remote controlled ships going towards unmanned ships, and then in further future with a lot of technological integration, it would mean that these ships would autonomously find their way and go wherever it takes, wherever they need to go. So this is a future vision, and it has been created by a number of companies. Most prominently in these companies is Rolls-Royce Marine, a company which is very famous for producing engines, marine engines for large ships. And they have created, together with other companies and a framework we have in Finland, which is called the DIMEC, a collaborative research organization which collects many of these companies together. All of these companies bring their own interests and their own technologies and capabilities into this kind of ecosystem, and they are trying to see how they can work together in order to materialize technologies and business models that would facilitate this future vision. So what we see here is an initial vision, a timeline from 2020 to 2035, and basically in some 10 years, many say this will be a lot faster. Basically in 10 years we will have these large ships going by themselves around the world and delivering the containers we need anywhere, you know. So what are the challenges here? Technologically, of course, there's many challenges, you know. For instance, how do you establish enough capacity to transport so much data across ship sailing, ocean sailing ships? So these sort of things. But what is even bigger issue here is how innovation actually functions, and further on, how business models are created when so many different actors bring in their specific knowledge and capabilities and resources into something that they need to work together. So we see, for instance, some of the most obvious kind of complications in a collaborative innovation system like this, that we have different companies from different industrial backgrounds with very, very different paces. For instance, if you talk about shipbuilding and the ship, you know, ships have a life cycle of 25 to 30 years. So that's a long time span. And that means also that companies in shipbuilding have a very, very long time frame to think. And now these companies should work together with firms like IT firms, software firms, network firms like Ericsson, which have a very, very short time frame in thinking about the life cycles. So it's about basing this industry effort or these innovation efforts in order that these different players can actually work together and achieve what they want to do. This also means they have to develop and adopt different new ways of how innovation actually is practiced. We know from very fast-moving and innovating industries that practices like minimal viable product or pivoting, a lot of testing and experimenting is a very common form of achieving rapid kind of development. Or we see many different models like open innovation and so on, which are very useful to think. But now the challenge in this sort of ecosystem approach to innovation is to really bring in different players with many of these different features and make them work together. So this is a quite exciting project, and it will mean that we have to develop in the first place some conditions that allow us to strategize on a network level, on an ecosystem level. And that is easier said than done, because it requires a lot of exploration, not only on the technical side, but also in terms of what kind of business models really will assure that enough demand is created in order to really supply these companies with what they need to run their companies. And that will, in the first place, require to think completely new ways about how governance models are designed in order to facilitate this on a network level. The transitionary period we can already see from many other ecosystems is usually starting from a very easy way, from an operational side. Operational integration of rather simple things, which are done changing the routine practice of these companies and essentially changing the way they look at the world, they look at innovation, they look at their business models. And in the final phase, this will require to really create an ecosystem sense-making type of approach, which allows them to really enact a common understanding of the environment they're living in and they're creating a future in. So we see some of these are the major issues when you don't look so much on the technical side, but rather look at the side of how to make a business out of this and how to assure that organizations can thrive within this. Okay. Few final thoughts. What is happening if this linear value chain type of industries are converging, and when they bring in a lot of new players from many other industries, and they are more interacting like in a network style or in a cloud style? I put a cloud there as a symbol. And they learn to work together, creating value together in an industry that is notoriously low productive. And how do they learn to strategize on a collaborative level? In the end, we might see that different of these ecosystems emerge in a competing space, and that we have on one side companies strongly collaborating with each other to create their own standards and their own approaches to do things. On the other side, they will create a lot of competition to other similar type of ecosystems, as we have seen in some industries already. Okay, I don't know, I still have 11 minutes and 18 seconds, but I'm basically done. Thank you very much. Yes.